I heard stories about Oatie when I first came to town, and I never really believed it until I went to work here in the hotel. And like I said, first I started working in the gift shop, and music boxes would play when they weren't supposed to be playing. Things would fall over. He doesn't like coyotes, because I used to have the little ceramic coyotes, and they would always get knocked over and everything. And then when I went to work, I gave up the gift shop and went to work as cook and bartender in here. And Oatie would do little things like he would hide things on me. We could hear him walking. Like my daughter was talking about when she was talking about that she was back doing dishes one time, and Billy Joe and I was sitting at the table, and she came out and thought she'd heard us call her. And it wasn't. It was Oatie, I guess, called her name, and he'd opened the refrigerator door, turned on the gas on the stove, which one burner never ever worked. But this one time, it came on. And we tried to turn it off and couldn't get it turned off. But it went out by itself. And this is a propane stove.
And it's never worked since?
Never worked since. Oh, when Paul would wax the floor, there would be nobody that was coming in, and we'd come in the bottom stairs down there in the bottom of the, well, down in where the restaurant part's at.
It would be locked?
It would be locked. And you'd come in and we could sit down there before we ever opened up the bar or opened up the restaurant. Always sit down and have a cup of coffee or something. Well, you'd see the footprints, like somebody had walked across the floor, and they would leave a dusty footprints along there, like they were going back to the men's room. Come up and you go to change Odie's room and straighten the room up and everything like this, dust it. We'd make the beds and everything, and then you fix it back up to where nobody could get in there, and yet you'd have the imprint of a person laying on the bed. And there was this little dog, little stuffed animal, that at times would sit up on the pillow. Well, at one time we forgot to put it back over on the pillow. It was over on the chair. And a couple of days later, this little stuffed dog was moved back to the bed. And nobody had been in there. You could not get in because we had the mesh chicken wire on the doors. And different things like this. You'd hear people walk. The Doris lady that passed away in July, her and I was changing record on the jukebox, and the song Luckenbach, Texas, the jukebox would come on and it would play and play and play, and it would play Luckenbach, Texas. Well, we took the record off and put a different record on there, but it would never pick that record up. So we'd go turn it around, we'd put back Luckenbach, Texas, and it started playing it again. So we decided no way was we changing the jukebox again. Oatie wouldn't like it. Oatie gets upset. He's mischievous. But there's times he'll get upset and he'll do things. Just mischievous things. Moving things, throwing things. Before this was turned back into where they rented the rooms, this was the kitchen part. And at nighttime, after the lights and everything were all off, there would be a light that would come on in here. And at times you'd see, people said they could see someone here at the window looking out. And we figured it was Oatie. So, because it's right next door to where his room was at.
When it was the kitchen, you would look out.
Mm-hmm. I haven't heard of anybody that says they've seen it since. And, when I closed up the one time and Billy Joe came in, because they were living up here, she was living in the apartment in number 22, and she came in and she found the men's room light on. And when she went to put the ice cream in the kitchen, in the freezer part, and she came back out, the light was off, and she thought it was her brother. But when she came upstairs, he was sound asleep. So she told him that he'd have to change the light bulb the next morning, and when he came downstairs to change it, all he did was pull the chain and the light came back on. So she figured Oatie had been in the bathroom too. So
seems to get around.
He seemed to, and like I was saying, my daughters heard the stagecoach go through town and heard children playing. In the house that I live in now, when she came outside, she has seen someone standing by my car, and I figured this is just the spirit of a boy that died just a couple of years ago, because we were very good friends with him, and I mean, he really liked my daughter and everything, and I figured it was his spirit that she's seen, because he was dressed in the Levi's and the white shirt when he died, and that's what she's seen. And well, like I was telling you once before, downstairs about my radio, and the doors were locked, the key was off, the ignition was off, radio never worked. And my son went outside, my son and his friend went outside, and they thought there was a party going on. They was going to walk out to see, and they both come running back in the house, and it was my car radio going. And I had to get the keys to go unlock my car, get in it, and I got in it, and I started it up and messed with the radio and turned it, and it went back off, and it's still never come back on since. So whether somebody was playing around with the radio and getting it to come on, or what was going on, I'm not sure. So I figured it was Jeff, was what I thought it was that he was messing around in it. And that's who I think that my daughter has seen. Well, when she first seen it, she went outside, and she was going to go feed the dogs. She got onto the porch, and she come running back in, and she was just white. And she says, "I'm not going back out there." And I says, "What's the matter?" And she described to me, she said that next to the car, right next to the driver's door, that there was this person standing. She said she thought it was a person, had on Levi's and a white shirt, and they turned and started walking back, and as soon as they got to the back of the car, they just disappeared. So she wasn't about to go back outside. She gets spooked. She gets very leery about talking with things like this. She's had quite a bit of experience with the different things happening, and hearing children play. And when she came downtown at 5:30 on her way to school, she heard the stagecoach go by and felt the wind from the stagecoach, and heard children playing on it. It sounded like they were laughing, and it scared her. She gets, like I said, very spooked on things like that. She's heard children play from when we used to live in a house that was the old school house, and she's heard the children play there. So she's had quite a bit of experience with the different spirits that's around. There was a lady that came in, and she claimed that she was like, a spiritual person, or that could tell things. And she said that at the end of the bar, that she could see the outline, or like a form of a man standing there, and there was no one there. And we figured it was Oatie, from the way she described him. And things like that didn't surprise me around Oatman or around the hotel. It doesn't scare me, because I figure they're not going to bother me. But there's a lot of different things that goes on all around town. I don't know if it's just spirits from the old miners or what, because we have 2 or 3 different graveyards that's around. We've had one graveyard that's out at Gold Roads that the tourists and things have gone into, and they've dug up the graves and messed with the graves. And then there's another one that's up here, that's up this way on Americana property, which they don't allow people to go up to. And spirits, I believe in them. I believe that you can have a bad spirit, you can have a mischievous spirit. I haven't ran into a bad one. I ran into mischievous ones, but never a bad one yet. Duke and Terry used to live up here when they were managing it. They lived here, and they were managing the hotel for Billy Joe, and they lived here in the hotel. And they lived in room 22, which is usually the room that everybody was staying in, because the other rooms were museum parts. And their dog, when their dog would come out in the mornings, when they get ready to go downstairs, the dog would make a direct line down to the theater room, and would stand there and bark and act like they could see something, but Terry said that they never seen anything there. They've heard noises. They've seen things happen, but they figure it was Oatie.